And what I found consistently through my research over this period, time and time again, that it's not about stakeholder management, setting up a PMO, having communication campaigns. The biggest success factor in how to pull off good change is your personal leadership skill. So I'm delighted and honored to be here today, and thank you to Mihaly for inviting me back on the stage. But I confess I'm also a bit daunted. Ooh, gosh, what can I say? In my 38 years in the field of change, I've never seen a moment like this. And yet, I have spent that period doing two things. I've been on a bit of a mission in life to explore the nature of change and how it happens, and secondly, how can we best lead it? As I've been a coach to many organizations across that time, across many continents and industries, I've been an HR leader myself at BBC Worldwide, PepsiCo, and the Gucci Group. Lucky me. And I've also done research in the field, so I have got a few things to say about what works. How can we lead change more effortlessly? So, here we go. But these are the four big messages about leadership. And what I found consistently through my research over this period, time and time again, that it's not about stakeholder management, setting up a PMO, having communication campaigns. The biggest success factor in how to pull off good change is your personal leadership skill. 52% on our variance analysis. Ignore your personal leadership skill and you reduce your chances of having good change by a half. So here goes. Let me start with the first message. Big change requires unbelonging. Now, I know a lot of the talk is about creating belonging, inclusion, making people feel secure. That's not what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to unpack what do I mean by unbelonging. And it's critical in disruptive contexts to learn how to unbelong to loyalties. But let me back up. What do I mean by change? I define change as the disturbance of repeating patterns. So why do we tend to stay stuck? Well, my contention is that the root of it all is how we pay attention. How do we take up our agency in the here and now moment? We have two choices. We either take in the world through ought, the world of ought, our wiring, or is, reality. Ought is about how we would wish or imagine the situation to be. If only we could be there. Is taking the world on exactly as it is. The capacity to be with all of what is, independent of what we would wish it to be. And here's the paradox. Change starts by acknowledging what is, giving an equal, non-hierarchical, unprejudiced space for all to exist, not by prodding it to where we think it ought to be. It is really quite paradoxical. So why do we tend to stay in our oughts? Our conditioning, if only it could be like this and not like that. So let me just describe what I mean by ought and why we have these oughts. So our oughts are the inner instructional codes that run our lives, how I ought to be, or how you ought to be, or how the situation ought to be. They are implicit and invisible. We unwittingly feel their conforming pressure without really knowing where they come from. And here's the big thing. They are inherited from relational systems dear to us, maybe a faith or a political affiliation, a national or a cultural ideology. At their most primal, our family and ancestral realm. I'm an adopted child. Two of my biggest oughts in life to secure my belonging are to please people and be perfect. These were the codes that I grew up feeling to belong to this tribe. Max, you were talking about tribes sitting around the campfire earlier. These are two of my primary oughts that condition how I see situations and how I show up. So our oughts are a function of our need to belong. And loyalty to oughts, well, whether that's a political affiliation or a family or a national cultural ideology, ensures continuity of the group. So no wonder they run our lives. They give us security and belonging, and they ensure system continuity. That's the prize. But what's the price? Well, our oughts divide the world, especially when they're strongly held ideologies. They lead to disappointment and disaffection. Oh, if only life could be like this, without just being perfectly okay, maybe even happy or joyful, Max, with the world as it exactly is. And most importantly, when it comes to change, our oughts distort truth. I call them the bouncers on the doors of the nightclub of truth, dictating what can and cannot enter our field of vision. I'm a Liverpool Football Club fan. That is my truth, how they ought to play. If I see Everton playing in a certain way, I cannot believe that is better at all, because my loyalty to, I'm a Liverpool Football Club fan. So my belonging to being a Liverpool fan is more important than me seeing reality. Yeah, so they dangerously distort truth, and if change starts by acknowledging what is, our oughts get in the way of change. I was working once with an HR leadership team who were trying to pull together a merger. They were acquirees, forming a group, a multinational HR leadership team. And after 8 months of trying to be an effective team, being together max, they were stalling in their ability to get together as being a team. So I came in and we did some work on the invisible loyalties that were beneath the team. Well, who's in the acquired company? Who's the acquirer? Does that give you a different set of codes? Who's from head office or who's in the business unit? What are the different oughts and loyalties there? And at the deepest level, there was one organization that was very entrepreneurial, had come from a very enterprising national ideology. One of the members of the leadership team was from a national state enterprise. So you can imagine how different oughts were governing, flowing beneath this HR leadership team. And it wasn't until we got these oughts out and they loosened their loyalties to these oughts that the team were able to join up, and then, boof, off the HR leadership team flowed, and by them getting together, they actually managed to unite their businesses together in a radically different way. So, just a reflection question for you here. If change starts by acknowledging what is, we need to learn how to move from ought to is. So I believe that the key task of a change leader is to help a system see itself, because very often we're not aware of these loyalties that we carry. I don't know about you, but I often find in change that we tend to rush to the solution quicker than examining what's here now. And yet examining what's here now is so important. Working from reality is so important when you're doing change. Otherwise, you get what I call action and not movement. Lots of busy programs and change initiatives, but you're not actually changing the source of the routine that's creating current reality. So, how do we help a system see itself? Rather than telling the system, you ought to go there, being here is not the good place to be. Well, I remember once working again with an HR leader, and this was a UK bank, who were trying to become more devolved in their decision-making and also more rapid uptake of technology, so less hierarchy, more devolved decision-making. So we had a big day with their top leadership group, and I was asked to come on at the beginning to say a few things about change. The CEO came up and did their talk, and then I came up. And I'd noticed before I came on the stage that the whole front row was reserved for the VPs. This is a conference about removing hierarchy. And the front row was all for the vice presidents. What do I do here now? Do I just go on with my talk, or do I help the system see itself? I help the system see itself. My knees were sort of going like this as I asked people, why have we got... Oh, well, because we've got to get onto the stage quickly to do our speeches. How many of you are doing speeches? One person put their hand up. Yeah, so the unwitting oughts that we can't see. We then did during the day, has any of you here done open space technology? Anybody, any hands up here? Yeah, isn't it a great way to help a system see itself? So rather than having a conference of syndicates and breakouts, you're in syndicate A, you've got topic B, the group as a whole decides what it wants to do. And volunteers name topics, and then you can go off and go to where you want to go. Well, we did open space technology at this day. It's great. I'm an anthropologist, right? So I like seeing systems. I'm a bit biased here. And it was amazing how the culture was in the room. So the biggest business unit in this organization that felt it was, we got to have all the capital resource. Guess where they put their station? Right in the middle of the room. HR was trying to become more business focused. Guess where HR put their station for the open space? Right down the corridor. Nobody could find them. So I love things like this because it helps a system see itself. The content of the conversation was also key, but observing the system in the room was the biggest catalyst for change. So, how might I help my leaders and teams to dig a bit deeper? I do think the HR role is to help ourselves see reality just a bit more clearly and dig deeper into what's going on. So what is the most direct route to truth and reality? What's our quickest way of accurately reading a situation? Rather than thinking, oh, we ought to be over here. How do we really get to be with what is? Elevate emotions. They are a key part of our neurobiology. Emotions are our most alert form of attention. So when we were sitting by the campfire that Max talked about, we had primary emotions. There are 8: fear, anger, disgust, shame, sadness, surprise, love, and joy. All of these primary emotions help us read the environment. They give us clues as to what's out there. They are data. Emotions are data. They're extraordinarily helpful. Not only that, emotions enable movement. They not only help you read the environment, our cognition usually puts the reality into categories, pre-existing categories. Emotions are such pure reality readers, they really are. They're not also just about you. I'm feeling angry right now in this meeting, or bored, or sad, or whatever. They are system clues. We are porous human beings. So the emotions that we are carrying are data about the situation around you, the team you are in, the department that you're leading. So emotions help us read truth accurately. They enable movement from one place to another, and they are clues about the system. What helpful leadership tools emotions are. I was sitting, I still am, on a board of an organization, and earlier this year we had the classic strat plan meeting. We were trying to do a 5-year strategic plan. And it was quite clear that going into the market and what the offerings weren't really what was needed in the room. So Muggins here, I was trying to think about what's going on here. How do I help the system see itself and what's really going on here? So we invited people to talk really about what's going on here. And I introduced those 8 primary emotions. And I positioned them as system data, not individual issues. Oh, we need to take care of you because you're feeling sad. No. That's not what this is about. And then lots spilled out about the tensions between the chair and the CEO. All kinds of things spilled out. So, what was really going on here? It was tense. It was uncomfortable. The chair and the CEO were suddenly bringing out stuff that we as the board members, the non-execs, weren't really aware of, but so much got seen. The group was trying to push to the ought of the strategy rather than really seeing what was going on here now. Once all of the people checked in with their primary emotions, it was like a release valve in the board. And not only that, they said, oh my goodness, these are the emotions that we're feeling in our organizations right now too. It's not about us not getting on with each other. This is such helpful data. There was one person who was really angry. Anger is a really important primary emotion. Anger helps solve injustices. Anger has fire. Anger is necessary for change. And they discovered that in their organization, there'd been a real upset in the organization, and not just bad exits of certain staff, but an injustice done in the community. This anger was really, really important data to talk about. Sadness. Somebody was talking about how they had to say goodbye to something. A business unit had to be sold off. And they hadn't really gone through the task of acknowledging that grief. So sadness helps us go from having something to not having something. After the meeting, we all left a bit jangled. We never got to the strategy, by the way. All we did was come out with the emotions. And the Monday morning after, the CEO was going to put a note out to the team saying, "I'm really sorry about last week. We went a bit off-piste. I should have stopped the meeting, when it got too emotional." But I had a conversation with the CEO to say, hold on a minute, what was really going on here? Elevate emotions as really helpful data. And he rewrote the note to the team, "Thank you for last week. I felt it was really awkward, but bringing out the emotions helped me see what I needed to do as a leader. I could see the painful costs and consequences of me not solving the issues around the hierarchy in this team." So emotions enable movement. So if we need to learn how to move from our oughts, our conditioning, what we think is desirable or expected, and move towards is, reality, we need to learn how to handle the emotions that arise from awareness. Truth stirs up things. So if truth catalyzes change, and truth catalyzes stuff getting stirred up, we have to learn how to handle emotions, give them a place as a change leader. Otherwise, what happens? Our primary emotions become what is called secondary emotions. Whereas primary emotions like anger serves movement, a secondary emotion keeps you stuck. Anger, if it's not processed, might turn into bitterness. Shame, shame is a precursor to all change and learning. Shame is such a helpful emotion to have. Oh dear, I could have done that differently. But shame might turn into withdrawal and total embarrassment. I need to leave this team, that was so awkward. Yeah, so how can we learn to handle the emotions that arise from awareness? Otherwise, the beauty of these primary emotions can hold you back. So again, as a change leader, how do I work with the disturbing and systemic power of emotions? They are clues into where your organization is and where it needs to head. Are emotions relegated? No, we don't do emotions in business. So finally, my last message, what most longs for us to be free of our oughts and our conditioning? How we'd love, if only the world could be like this, if only I could please people all the time, wouldn't that be great? If only everything was perfect and I didn't forget what I'm going to say next, wouldn't that be great? It's my pleasing and perfection coming in. It leads to very exhausting lives, by the way, when we're in the grip of our oughts. So my final message, dare, do, soul. So if you thought emotions were a bit, soul, oh my God, she's really getting weird now. So what is soul and what is its role in leading effective change? Well, I've got there's a wonderful, I think she's 14th century mystic, Julian of Norwich, and she said, the soul was made to see truth. The soul is the essence of the is of me, myself, before oughts came along to run my show. And we cannot be with the world as it is, which is what we need to do as change leaders, give everything a place, unless we've learned to discover and reclaim the self as it is. So two questions to you about your soul. Who is the unrepeatable person you are? What will brush off you in sparks if I just walk past you? What is your calling? What were you put on earth to do and become? So soul is our essential character, the is of self, our essential unique spirit, and it has intentionality. It wants us to do something in our lives. So you probably know by now that I'm adopted, and I can say that my essential character, my life started in change. I had a massive unbelonging experience at the start of my life, and so shall I help the field. That's why I'm in the field of change. My life began in change. So my character and my calling are so in line. We know when we're doing work that's not true to our soul. We can just feel it. We're doing it because we ought to do it, rather than because it really is the is of who we are. So what does this mean in business and leading change? Soul is also collectively held. I'm sure we've been in moments like a music festival, or maybe when we're, with mates looking up at the stars at night, or we're in that high-performing team that Max talks about, where everything just seems to flow. And all of our oughts about, different teams or departments or divisions, our own needs and neuroses and oughts just melt away. We're in soul territory. And soul territory moves people. And, what I want to try and find out is how can we get ease and movement and flow and change in our lives and our workplaces. Max, you talked about what's the team you're most proud of working with. I used to work at PepsiCo. And to this day, I don't know if anybody is here from PepsiCo or might have worked at PepsiCo. Yay! I was the head of organization and management development based in New York. And we ran a program called Experiencing PepsiCo. And this was the induction program for all new hires joining the company. I still remember to this day this program, even the outfits I wore. It was amazing. Really amazing. How did we prepare new people coming into the company? Well, we didn't send out, here's our product lists, our financial data, the countries, how many staff we have. We sent out to everybody before they came every key speech of every PepsiCo CEO going back to the founder. That was our sole task, to read the key speeches of the leaders who came before us. Doesn't matter how they were rated, doesn't matter what their length of service was. We knew we were joining an organization as one bead in a necklace of time. And it still gives me tingles now just thinking about it. That company had soul. I loved working for PepsiCo. Don't know what it's like today, but certainly then it was. And then when we all got together, Indra Nui, who was the CEO at the time, we all sat around that campfire that Max talked about, and we shared our own origin stories. Who stands behind us? We were in soul territory, and I tell you, we did such amazing change things together. It wasn't in oughty land, but we could be with what is. Soul, as a resource, gives you a capacity to be with the world exactly as it is. We don't fall off the universe. So, just to wrap up, if change starts by acknowledging what is, we need to learn how to move from our wiring to what is. Change requires unbelonging to these codes. I have learned how to unbelong to pleasing and being perfect. Oh my goodness. As a change leader, taking big, tough decisions, learning how to hold my need to please a little more lightly. We never lose our oughts and our conditioning, but we can learn to stand with distance from it. Help a system see itself. It has to start with consciousness. So, consciousness, emotions, and soul. Can AI do that? Question. Maybe they can. Maybe it can. Who knows? But I believe this is the space that we can take up as HR leaders in change. So this is our role. Call out loyalties. Dig deeper. Don't shut out the disturbance. It's such helpful stuff. I love disturbance. And summon the sacred. This is how you can move an organization and help it unbelong to loyalties and oughts. So as I said earlier, my life began in change, and I had a very early unbelonging experience at the start of life. But you know what? I've learned that unbelonging need not risk your survival. You won't be chucked out of the world. I was adopted by this most amazing, this is my dad here behind me, and my mum, June and Ron Rowland. We can unbelong and detach from loyalties and be part of a bigger universe. And guess what? Here's a photograph of my dad. This was his leaving photograph. He joined the post office age 14. He ended up as what was then called Chief Welfare Officer. I guess it's now CHRO. He did 40 years in HR. I've done 38 years, so maybe you're getting some of that spirit here on this stage. So, yeah, soul and emotion. Just a quick plug for the book. If any of you are coming to my masterclass about how do we approach change and architect change, I have some copies available in the masterclass. But here's the book. Somebody said it would be a blessing to us all if leaders everywhere read this book. So thank you for your attention. I was told not to take any Q&A, but I will be around in the coffee break. So you might want to come up and have a chat. So thank you for your attention.